Hi, my name is Robert, pastor of Glendale Church of the Brethren. Hope you are doing well. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of getting tired of this stay-at-home order and this physical separation that we have to have from one another. Can't believe it's only been 1 month. Doesn't it seem longer than a month? I know some weeks usually, days and weeks usually fly by pretty fast, but this last month seems like it's dragged on, and it seems a lot longer than a month. I was reminded of my time serving in the Navy. I went on a 6-month deployment one time, and after that first month, we kind of had to, the crew had to kind of examine ourselves and go, okay, it's only been 1 month, and we have 5 more to go. And this month seemed like a year, and we have a lot more to go. And so, sometimes time can seem different when you're going through something kind of difficult. And I was reminded of that this last month, looking back, going, wow, it was only just 1 month, and the sad reality is we don't know how much longer it's going to be. It might be 5 more months. We have no idea. So that's the tough part. And sometimes I go for jogs around Glendale. I hope you all have been exercising as well. I live pretty close to the downtown area, so I go jogging on Brand and look at all the restaurants. And while I was jogging recently, I kind of was thinking about what we're experiencing and going through. And it's definitely more of a long distance run than a sprint. In a sprint, you're going your fastest and you're focusing on time. Well, a distance run, you're focusing on conserving your energy and going as far as you can. And I was thinking about that analogy of, well, this is more of a long distance kind of marathon, because it's going to be more of the long haul. And so we have to pace ourselves, right? And how we navigate this difficult time. So I was thinking about that analogy, and then I kind of thought of a couple of texts from the Bible that were kind of similar in my mind, and I hope they're encouraging to you in today's video. So our main text is Romans 5, 1-5. So I'm going to read a couple of verses, and then I'll expound a little bit more on that, okay? So the first two, this is Romans 5, 1-2. He says, "Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand, and we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God." Kind of a upbeat section there. It's actually kind of similar to our last video. Our last video, we talked about reconciliation and talked about the good news, and part of the good news is the fact that we can be reconciled with God through Jesus Christ. And here it's kind of similar, but instead of using the word reconciliation or reconcile, he's using the word justified or justification. And very, very similar. He's saying through Jesus we are justified, and we have the peace of God, and we have the hope of God, and see the glory of God in the future. So very similar themes, just a different wording this time. But then on the verse 3, he kind of takes a turn and he starts to talk about suffering. Not only so, but we also rejoice in our sufferings. Okay, now he's talking about suffering, and this is actually kind of common in the New Testament. It's common knowledge that the New Testament church, they were being persecuted for their faith and for being different, and so the authors were encouraging them. They were telling them the benefits of this newfound faith in God and through Christ. But they were also being realistic to the situation that they were facing. And so he does that. So here he talks about the benefits of what they have received in part of their faith, but then he speaks to what they're going through in their suffering. And so sometimes I say these New Testament authors, they're very real, they're very, not realistic, but they're very optimistic is the word I'm looking for. They're very saying, hey, even in suffering, rejoice. I don't know how I would have taken that, but we're going to go with it. They're saying, hey, rejoice in the suffering. And the Bible gives us a couple of reasons why we should rejoice even in the midst of suffering. And they're good reasons. So the first reason is when we suffer, we are imitating Jesus. And as Christians, we are to, obviously, one of the things we're supposed to be like Christ. And so 1 Peter 4:12-13 says, "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though some strange thing were happening to you, but rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ." So when we suffer, we are imitating Jesus, and that's one of the goals of being a Christian, is to be like Christ. Okay, another reason we can rejoice in suffering is that it affirms our faith as being genuine. 1 Peter 1:6-7 says, "In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief and all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." So he's saying, hey, rejoice, because this suffering, this hardship you're going through, and when you persevere in your faith, this is an opportunity for you to realize, hey, my faith is real, because I didn't turn my back on it, or I didn't give up so easily. My faith is genuine. Rejoice in that realization. Okay. And finally, we're looking at the last reason today we're looking at is why we should rejoice in suffering is found in Romans 5, which is our text today. And we're going to go through that real quick here. So after verse 3, he says, rejoice in our sufferings. Why? Why does he say that? He says, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope, and hope does not disappoint us. Okay. So the last reason we are to rejoice in suffering is because of all these valuable and spiritual qualities that can come from it. So he talks about without suffering, suffering is the catalyst for us to go through, to experience the patience and the perseverance and the maturity and character. And ultimately that leads us back to hope. Without suffering, we wouldn't go through, we wouldn't have that experience and go through those things and gain that. So let's talk a little bit about perseverance. The Bible talks about perseverance quite a bit. James 1:3 says, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Luke 8:15 says, but the seed on good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering produce a crop. And finally in Hebrews 12:1, text says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And sometimes in the faith, there's this kind of misconception that when we follow Jesus, when we are Christians, that we won't have suffering, that God will protect us and we'll be spared suffering. But rather, the Bible kind of gives a different message, saying, no, you will have suffering, and it's not always bad. Sometimes there's good things that come from hardships and difficulties and suffering. And especially he talks quite a bit about perseverance. We persevere, we have patience, we persevere, we continue on, and in the end of that, we have the strength in character, we have the maturity of our newfound character. And I feel like this is true, right? Maybe some of you have gone through something very difficult, maybe in work or just in life, and it was hard. But when you came out of that, I imagine you were stronger, and you had a more mature character, and you learned something from that, and you were different, you were transformed because of the difficult experience. And so that's kind of what the author's saying here is, you rejoice in the fact that you will suffer, because the outcome of that, you will be tested, and you will be a more mature character, and you will persevere. In the perseverance, you will grow. And so he's saying, rejoice. Rejoice in the suffering. So I do want to say that the context here, I don't like when people take things out of context. So the context, well, he's not talking about the coronavirus. He's not talking about staying at home and being bored. He's not talking about these things. He's talking about being persecuted specifically for your faith. He's talking about suffering because of your faith by the hands of others. And yet, at the same time, I do feel that some of the things he's saying will still very much apply to our situation or to any situation of hardship and difficulty, right? And I just gave you that example. I imagine you've had those kind of experiences, and it still applies to you then, is that in difficult times, when we persevere through them, we grow and we become stronger and more mature, especially when we look back and reflect and go, wow, I did it. I went through it, and I was patient, and I persevered, and I kept going, and I didn't give up. And so as I kind of think about our own experience here, this is a test of patience. And I really like the analogy of this is a race. This is a long-term race. It's not a short one. It's a long race. And I like the Hebrews 12:1 metaphor. He says, let us throw off everything that hinders us and persevere in the race that is marked before us. I like that. And that's what we're doing right now. And we're kind of coming to that time where we're looking back going, wow, that was a long month. I don't know how much longer we have of this, but let's continue on. Our patience will now is becoming perseverance. We'll persevere on, and we'll continue on, and let us throw off the things that hinder us, and let us embrace this race before us, and let us run it, and conserve our energy and do it. And like I said, they are optimistic, but at the same time, they're very truthful. And I think at the very end of our situation, we'll come out of it stronger, with the experience of growth and a more mature character. Just like we do in any situation that's difficult and hard, we come out of it going, wow, I did it, and you can reflect back on your growth. And we don't face it together. 1 John 4:4 says, you, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than who is in the world. What is he saying by that? He's saying that God is inside of us, and we, during this time, can ask God for help. Partner with God, connect with God, and ask God to help us to get through this difficult time. So we can use the strength that God gives us, and we can comfort one another, call someone, check in on someone, and say, how are you doing? Because we're all experiencing this together. So, my friends, I hope you're doing well, and I hope this message is encouraging to you. Rejoice in your sufferings. Because of the sufferings, we will endure, we will persevere, and we will grow. And yes, I hope this is encouraging you. My friends, let us run this long race together with the strength of God and the comfort of one another. Amen.